Hey guys, I hope you're all well. Back with another video on another layer one that I think is going to be one of the top performers in this cycle. It reminds me a bit of Cardano in the last cycle, which was one of the kingmaker trades if you got in early enough. And this coin that we're going to talk about reminds me a lot of Cardano, and the charts are starting to look pretty similar. So let's dive right in. So the coin that we're going to be speaking about today is Fantom, FTM. Now, a lot of you guys will remember FTM as one of the best trades of the last cycle. It did a 300x from its low to its high, similar to Cardano in the 2017 cycle, right? It did, 150, 200 odd X, and it had a 95% pullback, right? And that's kind of what we've seen with Fantom. We'll dive into the charts in a little bit, but it had its first cycle where it did 300X. It's pulled back significantly from those highs, and now we're entering into a new cycle potentially with Bitcoin hitting 64k yesterday. So Fantom really started to gain my attention around the kind of 12th of February, around kind of mid-Feb, and I put a message out to the guys in the Crypto Alpha room that I'm going to be building a leverage position in Fantom. Got a really nice entry. Average entry is around kind of 39 cents, and that was more based on the chart, the kind of risk to reward we could get in with pretty decent size. There was pretty clear invalidation below the lows. It was a pretty nice kind of technical trade from a technical standpoint. And then about a week later, I saw this tweet from Andre, who is one of the lead developers at Fantom, or one of the co-founders rather at Fantom, that says they don't know Fantom Sonic is the highest TPS, so that's transactions per second, and the lowest TTF, that's time to finality, and parallel EVM. Now, any of you guys who watched my say video will know that one of the narratives that I'm very bullish on is parallel EVMs for this cycle. And there's not many ways to gain exposure to parallel EVMs. It's, pretty much through Say at the moment. There's not really many others. I guess there's Neon, we've got Monad coming, but there's not really many ways to gain exposure to the parallel EVM narrative. So when I saw this tweet, it made me incredibly bullish, because when you have co-founders or big developers that are focused on making their project fit certain narratives, which is obviously going to help the price go up, that's what you want. That's one of the reasons why Cardano did so well. They don't really have any working good tech, or at the time they didn't, but they had a founder who could push a narrative. He knew how to, captivate an audience and how to bring attention to the chain. Now, that's something that Fantom has never really been good at. I think they've always had good tech. They've never really been able to attract people to the chain. They've never really been that great at marketing. But when I saw this, I thought, okay, this is good marketing. If they can kind of fit these narratives, that's going to bring a lot of attention to the chain. And you can see the founder of Say actually replied to this tweet, because it did a bit of digging, and it does still seem like, although he said after the Sonic upgrade it's going to be the highest transaction per second, it doesn't actually seem true, because they'll be achieving 2,000 transactions per second, whereas Say will be achieving 12,500 transactions per second. Now, I'm still incredibly bullish on Fantom, because like I say, if it can meet this kind of parallel EVM narrative, we know the tech is good. Andre was also the founder of Yearn as well, which was an incredibly successful project. So these guys know what they're doing. And when we look at the chart, I'll show you why I think this is such a good opportunity. And even if you're watching this video now, I still think that there's a good opportunity with Fantom, with FTM, and that this could potentially go on to break all-time highs at some point later this year or maybe next year. So Fantom has the Sonic upgrade coming, and you can see it is scheduled for spring 2024, so it should be coming shortly. So I think Fantom could perform well, and I think this is a decent trade going into the Sonic upgrade, if anything, right? So you can see all the details here: 2,000 transactions per second, average finality of 1 second, while consuming a fraction of the storage used by its predecessor. So it is going to be a very fast blockchain. It's not going to be as fast as Say by the sounds of it. Say is, from our previous video, is the fastest blockchain. It will be the fastest blockchain probably for the duration of this cycle, but Fantom is incredibly fast. It's got an incredible team, and I think if they can work on the marketing, which it seems like they're starting to do, then this could be a very good trade. Another thing that I quite like about Fantom is that a lot of the tokens are in circulation. So you can see the max supply is 3.1 billion and the circulating supply is about 2.8 billion. So what this basically means is there's not going to be any huge unlocks from, VCs to kind of dump on us or anything like that. A lot of the tokens are already in circulation. That's generally a good sign. I'm not a big fan of the high FDV, low float model for the new projects, but with this, a lot of the tokens are already in circulation, which, like I say, is good, because you're not going to have any big unlocks where they can dump on us. Another thing as well is, if you look at the market cap that Fantom hit in the previous cycle, if we just zoom in on this, you can see that Fantom kind of peaked around the $8 billion market cap, just over 8 billion, around $8.3 billion market cap. And now it's sitting at a $1.3 billion market cap. And that's not massive in comparison to a lot of the L1s. You know, you look at most L1s did kind of 10 to 50 billion valuation in the last cycle. So Fantom went from a $5.5 million market cap in the COVID crash to an $8.3 billion market cap at the high. So it was arguably one of the best trades of the last cycle, and kind of supports the argument that, you know, these L1 trades can be those kind of kingmaker trades. Although sometimes they will have slightly bigger market caps, generally there will also be the highest valuations that we see as well are these L1s. So jumping on to the chart of Fantom, this is a weekly chart for Fantom, and you can see when we had the May, June, July crash in 2021, Fantom pulled back into this area around the kind of 17, 18 cents region. Then from there, it had a massive push up, made an all-time high around $3.4. And then we've had this massive correction ever since, right? From the all-time high down to the bear market lows, about a 95% correction. So down only through most of the bear market, but it did find support in this same level that it did in July 2021. Then we had a bit of a pump in early 2023, and then we've pulled back into the same region and found support again in this region that we did in late 2022, and we've had a push up. Now, what I really like about this chart is that we're basically just in a massive range, and we have been since mid 2022. So if you actually look at how long we've been in this range for, it's pretty much 2 years, coming up to 2 years that we've been in this range. So a famous saying that I always say is, you know, suppressed volatility leads to hyper volatility. So where we've seen this volatility very suppressed, kind of just moving in this range, when we do get a breakout, it could be a very explosive move, similar to what we saw here, where it was just up only for 6 weeks in a row. So this chart does look like it's getting ready for a big move potentially. We've also had this impulse, then we had a pullback into these averages and the 618 of the fib, and now we're potentially getting that next leg up. And you can see that price is just kind of being squeezed. If we go on a slightly smaller time frame, you can see price is just being squeezed, kind of getting ready for this next move. So I do think this chart looks very, very good. Like I say, my average entry is kind of around this kind of region here, around the kind of 39, 40 cents kind of region when we started speaking about it in mid-February with the guys in the Crypto Alpha Room. So we're already floating nice profits on this, but if you're thinking that you've missed the trade, I would say just zoom out. This has much, much higher to go. And even when you look at Fantom, the relative valuations with things like Bitcoin, for example, this chart has a lot of upside, right? And any of you guys who have been with me for a while will know that I like looking at relative valuations to kind of understand, you know, where things can go. We can look at market cap and we can kind of make a guesstimate or an educated guess as to, you know, where a market cap could go. But really, I like looking at these relative valuations for coins that have already been around for one cycle. So I'll show you an example in a little bit, but from a value perspective, I think there's value to be had in buying Fantom right now. The same with Fantom against ETH. You can see we kind of bottomed out on this region. We've had this impulse. It looks like we could be potentially printing a higher low here before we go and make a higher high. So I'm very bullish on Fantom. I think this chart shows that there's a lot of value to be had in buying Fantom. You know, just looking at the relative valuations for Fantom against Bitcoin, Fantom against Ethereum, there's a lot of upside. These are down pretty significantly from their highs. You know, it's still down 85, 86%, and Fantom against Bitcoin is still down about 90% from its highs. So I don't think that they will be going back to these highs, but I definitely think that the green lines, the kind of targets that you see here, could potentially be revisited for Fantom against Bitcoin. Now, just to show you a quick example of how these relative valuations can work. This is a chart of Cardano, but if we pull up Cardano against Bitcoin here as well, you can see in the last cycle, I got in Cardano pretty early. You know, I was kind of buying Cardano down here throughout 2020, kind of building my position. And I managed to pretty much sell the tops on Cardano pretty well because I was looking at the Cardano Bitcoin chart. So if we just zoom out on this chart, you can see we had all of this previous price action, marked out the key levels, and ended up taking profit on Cardano here, which was around the kind of $2, $2.50 sort of region. And then a little bit more here, which was pretty much the Pico top at $2.50 for this impulse here. Then we had the pullback, and then the last level that we ended up taking profit was in September 2021, which was literally the all-time high for Cardano, you can see here. So these relative charts can help, these relative valuations of the altcoin against BTC or the altcoin against Ethereum, when they've already had one cycle, can be pretty handy for your profit taking. So that's kind of the same strategy with Fantom here, is when this Fantom BTC chart starts hitting these valuations against Bitcoin, that is when we want to be taking profit, right? Now, just looking at some market cap comparisons for Fantom. If Fantom was to hit the current market cap that Avalanche is, which is 16 billion, then that would be an 11.8x for Fantom, which would take it to $5. Now, I'm not saying that Fantom's going to go there, but given that it hit $8 billion in the last cycle, I don't think that it would be unreasonable to say that Fantom could potentially get close to a 10 to 15, maybe $16 billion valuation. If you look at it against Chainlink, that would be roughly 11.5 billion. That would put us at $4 Fantom. So what you need to remember is that if we're right and we are relatively early in this cycle, then things like Chainlink, Avalanche are going to go much, much higher than these kind of 11 to 16 billion valuations, and all Fantom needs to do is get to the same valuation as them currently. Now again, I'm not saying that they will, but when I see a chart like this and I see founders pushing certain narratives, I'm interested. I think there's definitely a trade to be had on Fantom here, and I definitely think that we could come to these kind of 4.5, 5.5 kind of dollar regions. This is the -27 extension. This is a -61.8 extension on the fibs, and I definitely think that this could happen. But I will let this chart lead us, this kind of relative valuation chart of Fantom against Bitcoin, and then keep an eye on the USD chart as well. And if things really do get overheated, then we can start taking profits as well. But I definitely think that this is one that you guys need to keep on your radar, especially going into the kind of spring of this year with the Sonic upgrade coming. I definitely think we could see Fantom push to $1, maybe $1.50 in the coming months, as long as the overall market sentiment stays bullish. But that's it for this video. If you guys like it, then like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care.